welcome. I would like to welcome you to yet another episode of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. And if you'll do me a favor, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, and it would definitely mean a lot. Any subscription, of course, would help. So please subscribe. It would definitely mean a lot to me. But here's where we'll start. And here's why I love basketball, of course, but here's why I love playoff basketball. A series can tell you everything that you need to know about a team. You can't run away from what you are in a series because, there's really no game plan or there's like let me say this. The team that you're facing, you got to beat them 4 out of 7 times. And that's just how it is. That means mano a mano, I'm going to see you at least 4 times. And this is what we're doing. So I love playoff basketball. And what I wanted to do today is I wanted to talk about what we've seen one out of these playoff matchups, and why a team will lose and why a team will win their matchups. Let's start with the Clippers and Jazz. First and foremost, we're seeing a contrast of 2 different teams in one area, and that is chemistry. If you look on paper, the Clippers have a better team than the Jazz. You have Kawhi Leonard, you have Paul George, you have Morris, you have Reggie Jackson, you have Zubats, you have DeMarcus Cousins, you have Rondo. They have the better team. But the chemistry, you look at the Clippers and realize they don't really have the most. Like that team is an ISO team. Give me the ball, spread out. Let me break down, hopefully get to the paint and try to kick out for 3. Or let me break my man's down, get a mid-range. This is an ISO team. And you look on the other side, the Jazz, that team is full of chemistry. Donovan Mitchell knows exactly what Joe Ingles is going to do, what Bogdanovich is going to do. Rudy Gobert is protecting the paint. You have Sixth Man of the Year, Jordan Clarkson coming off the bench. George Niang is playing big minutes. So both of these teams shows what chemistry looks like and what chemistry doesn't look like. But let's just go with the Clippers. Why would the Clippers win the series? The Clippers win the series because they are a deep team. They have, like I said, Kawhi, Paul George. They have Luke Kennard. They have what's his name? Nicholas Batum. Like they have a deep team. Now, on paper, they are deep. What they get from these players, you never know. Like I said, DeMarcus, I don't understand the rotations for the Clippers. Game 1, Patrick Beverley doesn't really play. DeMarcus Cousins, I think, plays maybe 3 minutes or something. Next game 2, DeMarcus Cousins can't get off the floor. Rondo doesn't even play. Like, I don't really understand what Tyler was doing with these matchups, but it's a deep vet team. Like I said, all the best players on the Clippers are veterans. You have Terrence Mann, and he's I think a rookie, but all the best players, like I said, Kawhi, Paul George, DeMarcus Cousins, they're all vets. Also, you have, on paper, you have 2 of the best 3 players in the series, which is Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. So when you go into that, you expect that's how they could win. How they could lose, however, is something that I've seen, and we really have to we really have to have a serious conversation about the perimeter defense that the Clippers have. We tout, Kawhi Leonard as being a multi-time defensive player of the year, Paul George as being a multiple all-defensive player. However, this is the second series where somebody is looking like the greatest player of all time. The first series, Luka was giving them the business. Like, Luka could not be stopped the first series. In this series, while it is only 2 games, Donovan Mitchell looks like the greatest player walking on the face of the earth going up against Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And I don't understand. I guess I understand kind of to save his energy for offense, but I don't understand why we're not seeing Kawhi Leonard on Donovan Mitchell a lot more than he is, because as we're seeing, Paul George isn't getting it done. Paul George isn't getting it done. And that's another reason why they could lose, is because Paul George is having one of those playoff Paul George's games, man. I don't remember. I don't think he shot. Now he did have a decent game 2, but I don't think he shot over 40% this since like maybe game 1 or 2 of the Dallas series. Like I don't know, man, but their perimeter defense, there's a difference between having the best player on the floor and being the best player on the floor. There should be no argument that Kawhi Leonard is the best player in the series. There should be no argument about that. Kawhi Leonard should be the best player in the series, or is the best player in the series. However, Donovan Mitchell, when he's on the floor, has played like the best player in the series. And because of that, that's a big reason why the Utah Jazz are up 2-0 in the series. Now, I understand that they played at home, but both of those games, the Clippers could and should have won. Now, we all know about their crunch time. The Clippers are one of the worst crunch time teams in NBA history. Like, that is no exaggeration. They're not good. And if they do not, let me say this. If they don't get it together, their defense is going to hold them back. From their perimeter defense against perimeter players is going to hold them back from winning it and winning this series. Let's go over to the Jazz. Like I said, the difference between the Jazz and the Clippers is the Jazz shows you when you look at the Jazz team, that shows you what chemistry looks like. This team is firing on all cylinders. This is probably the most complete team in the league. And when I say that, I'm not saying, offense, defense. What I'm saying is they have offensive players, they have defensive players, and they have chemistry. That's, to me, what makes it complete. It's not a 50-50 thing. It's do you have offense, do you have defense, and do you have a complete team? Do you have a good coach? Do you have a good coaching staff? The Utah Jazz is the most complete team, and that is why they could win this series. It's because they have it all. If Donovan Mitchell's not, now I will say that they will go as far as Donovan Mitchell takes them. But if Donovan Mitchell's not hitting, you still have Joe Ingles, you still have Bogdanovich, you still have Rudy Gobert, you still have Jordan Clarkson. All those players can pitch in. Now it will be incredibly harder if Donovan Mitchell's not playing well, but he's been playing incredible this series. And chemistry goes a long way, man. We talked about this a couple episodes, man, but like I said, chemistry versus talent. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you have no chemistry, you're always going to be held back. And I'm not saying that you cannot win with no chemistry. What I'm saying is it's going to be incredibly harder if you don't have chemistry with your team. So that is the biggest reason why the Jazz could win this series, because they're the most complete team in this series, and arguably probably the most complete team in this entire playoffs. There's no it's no surprise, and it shouldn't be a shock to people that the Jazz were number one in the West. Like, this is the reason why. How they're playing in the series is how they've been playing all year, except for when, of course, Donovan Mitchell was out. But they've been playing. This is the Jazz. It's funny, man. I say that, and I was always one of those people, and I'm still one of those people like, we just got to wait to see, man. They can't be playing this good. Like, I remember on an episode, I was like, I think the Jazz is I was naive. I was naive, and I was stubborn. That's it. I was stubborn in my ways. I'm like, the Jazz are playing incredible. The Jazz are one of the best defensive teams. The Jazz are one of the best three-point shooting teams, one of the best offensive teams. There's no way that this can translate from the regular season to the playoffs, especially when you have, stars like LeBron, AD, Kawhi. Like, I just didn't think they would be able to maintain this. And 2 series in, they have maintained it. And I'm still like, I don't know. I mean, everything that makes a team, they don't have, I'm not saying they don't have, but they don't have the quote unquote big star. Even though Donovan Mitchell is playing himself into superstar status, it's I'm like, I don't know. So I'm still being a little stubborn, but hey, man, look, This Jazz team is incredible. Now, how could they lose this series though? Let's move on to that. How could they lose this series? One thing that we're seeing with the Jazz, and the reason why it hasn't come back to kill them is because the Clippers have not been able to take advantage as far as to win the game. And that is, there are times when the Jazz have scoring droughts. Even though you have, like I said, some of the incredible shooters, sometimes they're in scoring droughts, and those scoring droughts can last 2 to 3 minutes. And in those scoring, it's not like they just miss shots. Sometimes they just take bad shots, and because they don't have a lot of, I think really the only two players that can really put the ball on the ground and create offense for themselves is Donovan Mitchell and uh, Jordan Clarkson, who's a sixth man. They're kind of strapped for score, like creating points, creating scoring opportunities for themselves. So that's one. I could see a team, if the Clippers do it, who knows? But I could see a team in those scoring droughts, or you try to make Donovan Mitchell, like you cut Donovan Mitchell off as far as don't allow him to get other people involved, and cut Jordan Clarkson off when he's on the floor. That kind of straps down the Utah Jazz as far as, trying to create shots. So that's really the only way I can see them losing is in those scoring is a team force them into scoring droughts because Donovan Mitchell isn't creating for his team, or is having a hard time creating for his team, and Jordan Clarkson's having a hard time creating, and in those scoring droughts you go on a scoring run. So that's the Jazz. Let's go over to Brooklyn and the Bucks. The Brooklyn Bucks series is showing you this is a contrast of two different teams. This is a team, you're looking at Brooklyn, who is solely offense. However, and I will give them credit because I've been bashing them this entire year because their defense has been god awful. I will give them credit. Their defense has been incredible this playoff series. The way that they're defending Giannis, the way that they're defending Jrue Holiday, the way that they're defending the perimeter, it has been good. It's been really good. And that is the sole reason why they're up 2-1 in the series. Now, like I said, this series is this contrast of two different styles. You have defense, get to the rim. While they're good three-point shooters, their goal is to get to the rim and get to the free throw line. Brooklyn, they are solely perimeter. Like KD, Kyrie, James Harden, even though he hasn't been in the series, they will break you down, shoot threes, shoot midi. Like it's offense versus defense. And what we're starting to see is, now Brooklyn won the other night. I think it was 86-83. I think that's the first time the Brooklyn Nets have been held to under 90 points in the regular season, or in a game, since having the big three. And the thing that let's just talk to Brooklyn. Why they'll win? Because they have the best offense in the playoffs. You have three players. Well, you have two right now. James Harden should be coming back soon, but you have three players in James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving that can give you 50 any given night. Hell, the other night, Kevin Durant probably played the worst game I've seen him play in a while. Like, he couldn't hit to save his life until the second half. No, until really the fourth quarter. And still ended up with like 30, 32 points. And they really lost because of Bruce Brown's. I'm not going to talk about that. But the reason why they win is because, or the reason why they could win is because they have the best offense in the playoffs. They have three, not to mention Joe Harris when he's hitting shots. Blake Griffin has had a resurgence. Landry Shamet. They have Claxton in the middle. Like this is tough, and it's crazy. Like Jeff Green's out. But he could be a piece. It's tough, man. They have the best. They have the best offense in the league. In the playoffs. Now, why could they lose? Because they also have the worst defense. Now, while yes, they have been destroying the Bucks, and their defense has been better. Don't get me wrong. Their defense has been better over the course of this series. Their defense is still bad. I think the game that they lost 86-83 was an anomaly as far as like the score, because if you look, Chris Middleton had probably the best game he's ever had in the playoffs. Giannis was incredible until he wasn't. Even though Giannis kept taking 8, we'll talk about it in a second. But their defense, I mean, even when they're beating them by 50, they're still scoring like 120 points, 130. Like that's not if let's just say, Lord forbid, 2 of the big 3 is off. That really hampers your chances in winning the game, because if KD and James Harden's off, it's going to be on Kyrie. But when you have Drew Holiday, when you have PJ Tucker, when you have some of the players that they have, that can really, that can really be a sticky situation. Not to mention, the thing that the Bucks can do is they can defend and score. Now, we'll talk about it in a second, but yeah. So the reason why the Brooklyn Nets could win this series is because they have the best offense in the playoffs. They clearly have the best offense in the series, and they're up 2-1. The reason why they could lose is while they have the best offense, they have the worst defense in the playoffs. Let's go over to the Bucks. And the Bucks is really showing you, look, I don't understand. Let me start with the positive. The Bucks could win this series because they have the best defense in the playoffs. You can argue the Jazz, you can kind of argue the Philadelphia 76ers, but it's really the Bucks. The Bucks have the best defense in the playoffs. When you can tote out a Drew Holiday, a PJ Tucker, a Giannis, who's a 2-time MVP, 1-time defensive player of the year, Brook Lopez, you have the best defense. And when you're going up, I thought this series was going to be a little closer because I thought the matchups could match up perfectly. While I don't think that Drew Holiday and PJ Tucker can stop Kyrie and James Harden, I think you can slow them down enough where it really solely depends on Giannis versus KD. And that's what I thought. And that's not how it's happened, but hey. And the Bucks, the way they can lose this series, I don't understand why they keep. Look, I understand Giannis has improved year after year on something. When you look at Giannis from his rookie year to what he is now, he's improved drastically. I mean, nobody would have thought that looking at Giannis' rookie year, he'll be a 2-time MVP. No one would have thought that. No one would have thought he'd be a perennial all defense NBA player. Nobody thought he'd be a defensive player of the year. Nobody thought that. But one thing Giannis is not good at, and that is shooting the damn ball. I think the other night he was 1 for 8 from 3, and he was like, I think in the series he's like 6 or 7 for like 20 or 25 or something like that from the free throw line. And they can't. The reason why. Okay, so what we saw in the losses in Brooklyn is they are not able to keep up the scoring with Brooklyn, and Brooklyn is doing what most teams have done, and that's trying to force Giannis to shoot. And when Giannis shoots the ball, you have a better chance at winning. That's not negotiable. So I don't until Giannis improves on shooting the ball, the Bucks will always have it would always be tougher for the Bucks because teams, especially in the playoffs, when you're playing the best teams, like there's no kings in the playoffs. There's no freaking Chicago Bulls in the playoffs. These are the best of the best teams, and they know how to defend. And that is, it makes Giannis shoot, and he just has not been able to capitalize on that. So the Bucks can win because they're the best defensive team, and if you slow down Brooklyn and make them really have to defend, then you have a series on your hands. The reason why they could lose is Giannis just can't shoot to say. And yeah, man. Let's go Nuggets and Suns. Let's start with the Nuggets. The Nuggets, there's only one reason to me they could win this series, and that is because they have the MVP in Nikola Jokic. It's funny. A lot of people, Nikola Jokic has the same effect as a Chris Paul, but in this sense. Nikola Jokic is able when the Nuggets are rolling. Nikola Jokic controls the tempo. He gets everyone else involved. While he doesn't have the same, I mean, he does have more turnovers than Chris Paul, and of course, he doesn't have the handles or anything like Chris Paul. Chris Paul is incredible mid range. So is Jokic. Jokic is good 3-pointer. Chris Paul is good 3-pointer. Chris Paul and Jokic play the same role for their team. Jokic is able to calm down his team when things get a little awry. And because Jamal Murray is not there, Nikola Jokic is more important than ever because, again, your second best, or honestly, your best scorer is not there. So the only reason to me they could, or the only way that the Nuggets could win this series is if Nicole. Let me say this. The only way the Nuggets can win this series is because Nikola Jokic. He is the only reason. The reason why they could lose is there's not much else after Nikola Jokic. And I'll say that because when you look at the scoring discrepancy with Jamal Murray out, yes, Will Barton just came back, but he came back from a hamstring. It was his first game, last game. They don't, outside of Michael Porter Jr., they don't have really anybody that can put the ball on the ground consistently and give you a shot. You can say, but what about Austin Rivers? There's a reason why Austin Rivers has been on 4 or 5 different teams. Like I said, we can see about Will Barton, but Will Barton is just coming back from injury. And Nikola Jokic can't really do that. And to be honest with you, he's a great facilitator. He's a great. His vision's incredible. He's a good offensive player, but he can't really, bing, bing, bing. He can't break you down, and he can't really do that. So they don't have the adequate. They don't really have a score outside of Jamal Murray, and he's not there. Yeah, Aaron Gordon's been okay. No, he's not. No, he's not. You're not gonna look. Side note, you're not gonna curse me out. I don't care who you are. You are not going to curse me out talking about I need to play better. In the next game, you give me 6 points. That's just not going to happen. I don't know who you think you're talking to. I don't know who you think. It'd be different if you come out and give me 20 or 25. Like, he's right. But you don't curse me out, especially if you're new to the team. You don't curse me out, and then the next game give me 6 points. Who you think, bruh? Man, look. So like I said, the Nuggets can win this series because they have the MVP. They could lose because they just don't have enough scoring without Jamal Murray. The Suns. The Suns is the most complete young team. I know I just said the Jazz is probably the most complete team, but when we talk about young teams, the Suns have it all. You have a leader in Chris Paul who can also put the ball on the ground and facilitate. You have an incredible offensive weapon in Devin Booker. Cameron Payne has come off the bench and been incredible. You have Craig has been good. DeAndre Ayton has some games he's played better than Nikola Jokic. So they have a complete team, and their team, the Suns are so good, they honestly could win it all. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, we'll talk about it moving forward, of course, but the Suns to me have the complete youth team, and they play defense. Now, their defense is not as good as the Jazz or the Bucks, but they do play defense. They fly around everywhere. Jay Crowder helps with that, so they could win because they're the most complete young team in the playoffs. Why they could lose is because of their youth. And I know I just kind of praised their youth for being, being good as far as a complete team. But as we've seen, there are times when they have lulls. There are times when they take god-awful shots. There are times when, the thing that's helping them, the thing that's helping the Suns in this series is they're not playing a team that are really full of veterans like that. I mean, I know you have Nikola Jokic, but he's still kind of young. Michael Porter Jr. is still young. I know you have Paul Millsap, but he's not really like a game changer anymore. Aaron Gordon's not really a game, or hasn't been a game changer. So, excuse me. So the thing that's helping them is they don't really have a vet. Excuse me. They don't really have a. They're not playing a vet. Like, I think that if they would have played a team like the Clippers, that would have been tough for them because their best players are more veterans, and their best players you can stick on a Chris Paul and a Devin Booker, which is Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. So their youth, I think that they are going to win this series, of course. But if they don't, I think that youthful lulls and youthful mistakes are going to be the downfall for them. So let's go over to Philly and Atlanta, and that's the last series to talk about. Why Philly could win this series is because they have Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and I think this is the biggest team in the remaining left in the playoffs. I mean, you can start your starting five can have a 6-7 point or 6-11 point guard and Joel Embiid, who finished second in MVP. So this team is huge. Like, you still have Dwight coming off. You have Tobias Harris, not really big, but you have Seth Curry. You have Shake Milton, who came and was huge last game. This is a huge team, and when your two best players are Joel Embiid, who was an MVP finalist, and Ben Simmons, who was a Defensive Player of the Year finalist, you're working with magic. You know what I mean? So, and why they could lose is Ben Simmons' lack of shooting. You've seen teams, hell, you saw the Wizards do it. You saw the Hawks do it a couple times. Sending Ben Simmons to the line is your best bet. And also the Sixers they go through laws as well as far as scoring. Even though you have a Seth Curry, even though you have a Tobias Harris, they aren't the best scoring. The team is not the best at scoring. They are good when they're locked in. They're really good defensively, and of course, Joel Embiid can destroy you in the paint. But when we talk about outside shooting, yeah, their best outside shooter, and really their only outside shooter, is pretty much Seth Curry. And you can get Tobias Harris isn't a reliable shooter, even though he's been good. He's not really been a reliable shooter. Shake Milton's not been reliable. They don't really have Danny Green has not been really reliable, and in a couple games. So their lack of shooting outside of Seth Curry and sometimes Danny Green could be the reason why they lose this series. For the Hawks, they can win this series because they have Trae Young, and they're the most explosive team in this playoffs right now. I mean, Trae Young, John Collins, Clint Capella, like, they are explosive, and because they're young, because they fly around. This team now they fly around. Let's just say that. But they are a young, explosive team, and they can get the one kind of what they want to do is get Philly in a track meet. And if they get Philly in a track meet, especially being led by Trae Young, they can definitely win that series. And we saw that game one. You get them in a track meet, and we kind of saw that game two, honestly, even though they lost game two. You get them in a track meet, you have a good chance of winning because of their youth, their offensive firepower, and their scoring. The reason why Atlanta could lose this series is they don't play a lick of defense. They cannot play defense. They didn't play defense the first series against New York, and the only reason why they won that series is because New York doesn't have anybody that can punch. Like, they couldn't score, save their life. They don't play no defense. Joel Embiid is going up getting whatever he wants. Ben Simmons, even though he can't shoot, he's getting to the rim with ease. They can't score. They can't defend. And honestly, it kind of goes back to the youth thing. Sometimes they take, even though Trae Young has been incredible, there's sometimes the team takes some wild shots. Like Trae Young will, and don't get me wrong, he can make it because he's made it, but look, Trae Young be taking some of the wildest threes I've ever seen, and I understand, he has that range, but it's not as consistent as you want it to be. So it'll be like 21 seconds left in the shot clock, and Cuz will shoot it from logo. I'm just like, oh, okay. So the reason why the Atlanta Hawks could win this series is because of Trae Young, and they're the most explosive team, and they can get you in a track meet. They can lose this series because of shot selection, and they don't play no defense like at all. But I am enjoying the playoffs, man. The playoffs is exciting. And the thing that I also love about NBA playoffs is each series is a story in and of itself. We talked about Atlanta, Philly, Trae Young and the youth against Joel Embiid in the size. We talked about the Suns and the Nuggets. Legacy as far as Chris Paul and youth and Devin Booker going up against the MVP and Nikola Jokic, and how far can he carry his team with the second best player in Jamal Murray being out. You have the Bucks in Brooklyn, Giannis against KD, like in offense against defense. You go with the Jazz, go with the chemistry against talent. That's I was an episode the other day, like chemistry against talent. The most, the team that's been gelling the most has the best, deepest team pretty much in the Jazz against the team with one of the team, or in the series, the team with the most talent, which is the Clippers. It's fun, man. It's great to see, and I'm excited to see. I'm excited to continue to watch to see will the Clippers come back from 2-0 after winning Game 3? Can the Bucks force a Game 6 or 7? Will Atlanta bounce back and win another game? It's exciting to see these storylines, man. So I'm here for it. Let's move on. So the other biggest news that happened over the week was college football committee, I guess. They're going to vote and discuss having a 12-team playoffs. Now, a lot of this is due to the fact with the pandemic, a lot of teams and a lot of conferences couldn't even play. Of course, stoppage with all sports. When that happened, teams or schools had to take out loans. They're trying to recoup their money back. So if you think that this is for the fairness of the game, you're wrong. Another thing, do not think the reason why I'm excited for this, because I've been saying that just 4 teams isn't really. It's cool. Like, I like seeing. It's fun, but you want to see. I want to see more competition, man. I want to see 17. I want to see a 12-team playoff. I want to see brackets. That's what you're used to. You love March Madness because it's multiple teams, and of course you can build your brackets and everything. It's kind of hard to build brackets with 4 teams. Like, that's just, while it's cool, it's yeah. But I'm excited. Now, I will say this. In order to do this, a couple things are going to have to happen. First and foremost, there will be teams that are going to play They're going to play 17 games. They're going to play pretty much an NFL schedule now, seeing as though the NFL just added another game. So there's no way in heaven or hell that you can have a college athlete play 17 games and still not pay them. Like, this is going to increase revenue beyond belief. Seeing as though there's a lot more teams teams get bonuses for being in the college football playoffs. And now that you expand it to 12, there's going to be more eyes, more fan bases. So the teams are going to start playing. Then you're forcing kids to play in more games. So if you don't pay them at some point, it's like, oh, okay. And also, don't think that this is going, and I'm excited for this. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited for more football. I'm excited to see if a 12 committee. I think they said that if they vote on this, it can come to us as quick as 2023. I will say this though. Do not expect this to balance out the talent and the power. Don't think that this gives the Dukes and the Cincinnatis and Boston colleges. Don't think that this gives them a fair shake. because of some of the rule or some of the, I guess, guidelines that came out with, saying that this is not going to limit like, there's not a limit on the amount of teams a conference can have in these playoffs. Meaning that it can be solely, I mean, it could be, now of course it won't be, but 8 of the 12 teams can be SEC teams. 8 of the 12 teams can be Pac-12 teams, or Pac-10, or Big Ten, or ACC. So don't think that, the Boston Colleges or the, I don't know, North Dakota States, like, don't think that this makes it even more fair for them. I will say that it brings on more opportunity, but you see it all the time. If Cincinnati has the same record as Auburn, they're going to pick Auburn 10 times out of 10. If Boston College has the same record as Tennessee, they're going to pick Tennessee 10 times out of 10. If Maryland football has the same record as Texas football, they're going to pick Texas football 10 times out of 10. So don't think that this just evens out, because it doesn't. Now, like I said, it does bring on more teams, but again, this isn't going to knock off the big powers. This isn't going to knock off the Clemsons. It's not going to knock off Alabama's or the Notre Dames. Like, they're still going to be cemented. They're still going to get 3 or 4 of those 12 spots, with the Oklahomas. But it just brings more. Now, I hope that, of course, we have to see what happens as far as moving forward. Like, we have to see how it's executed. But I'm excited to see it, man. Now, I don't want to see a college football playoffs where 10 of the 12 or 8 of the 12 is an SEC team. I don't want to see that. If that's the case, then nah. And I don't think that that's going to happen either, because the college, the reason why main reason why they're doing this is because of money. And they understand that if one region or one section of the United States is the only section that's getting in the college football playoffs, you're cutting off a whole bunch of different sections, a whole bunch of different regions. So don't be surprised if you see, I mean, depending on their record, if you see an Oregon get in. Don't be surprised if you see a USC get in. Don't be surprised if you see, Notre Dame's or Texas's. Like, you don't want straight Alabama, Mississippi State, Auburn, Georgia. You don't want, that's just one region. And if this is to make as much money as possible, they're going to add some Pac-12 teams. They're going to add some Big 12. Like, they're going to add some type of teams, some of those teams. So I'm excited to see what we get, how we get it. I'm excited to see what comes of this, because, like I said, this is something that they've been talking about. And honestly, if it really wasn't for the pandemic, I don't think this would have happened, because if it wasn't for the pandemic, the college football playoffs still get what they want. They still get the 4 in the old format. They still get the 4 best teams. You still get Alabama. You still get Clemson. You're probably gonna get Ohio State, maybe Oklahoma, and then you might get an independent like a Notre Dame, or you might get a Pac-12 like a Oregon or a Washington or a Stanford. So they're still making their money, but because the pandemic, because college football and college sports in general lost so much money, the pandemic kind of kicked it kind of jumped, it kind of steamrolled this. So I'm excited to see what comes from it. I'm excited to see it. Moving forward, congratulations to Claressa Shields for winning her MMA debut with a TKO knockout. Now, a lot of people don't talk about women's boxing as much as other boxing, of course, but Claressa Shields is one of the best female boxers we've ever seen. She kind of reminds me of Deontay Wilder. She's not the most technically sound boxer. However, she packs a punch, and she knows angles. She knows angles, and she's a great puncher. I mean, she's 11-0 in boxing. She's a 5-time gold medalist, um, and now she's 1-0 in MMA. And she came out saying that she wants to be the best women's boxer as well as the best women's MMA fighter. And I don't. I mean, no. I while she did win her first fight, I don't think she's ready for the Amanda Nunes's or anything like that. But I'm excited to see. A lot of people really don't like her because of her personality, of her confidence, of her bravado. Um, and a lot of people were upset. Like, a lot of people I saw on social media were praying for her downfall. Like, people did not want her to come into another sport, which is the MMA, and flourish. And again, I understand it's 1-0, and we have to continue to see. But she looked really good her first fight. Like, she looked really good. She destroyed homegirl. Like, it was bad. And she said she's been training hard and everything, and yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. I'm excited to see where she goes from here. Again, I don't think that her second fight should be Amanda Nunes or anything like that. But and of course she needs to continue to work up to that. But she I think she's 25-1 in her amateur career, 11-0 in professional boxing, and now 1-0 in MMA. And like I said, it's 5-time gold medalist. So congratulations to Claressa Shields, and I'm excited to see where her career goes from here. I think that she, because she puts in the work, as you can clearly tell, she can go far in the MMA. And I don't think that her MMA career has to stop her boxing career. I think that she still has a lot. The problem with her boxing career is a lot of people don't want to fight her because she just destroys people. A lot of people, and it's kind of turned a lot of people away. Like, and it's also turned promotion away because I don't think that she draws a lot of money in promotionally for boxing because how dominant she is and how she just destroys people. It's kind of like Terrence Crawford right now. Terrence Crawford now, of course, he hasn't fight the Earl Spence or anything, but Terrence Crawford, a lot of people don't like boxing him right now because he just destroys everyone. And it's like, how are you going to pay pay-per-view for a person that you know is going to lose? So, and that's kind of how Claressa is, but needless to say, she's incredible. So congratulations to her for, like I said, winning her MMA debut, and I'm excited to see where her career goes, both in boxing and in MMA. So, shouts out to her. Okay, let's move. Let's. You know what? This is rant time. I don't usually do this, but this is it's time. So a report came out yesterday, I believe, saying that the Wizards are likely going to retain Scott Brooks, and I think they're doing this to keep Russell Westbrook happy. How do I address this? How do I attack this with the right amount of professionalism, yet the right amount of aggression? That's what I'm struggling with right now. Because I'm a fan. In one hand, I'm a fan. I'm a Wizards fan. I mean, I'm born and raised in the DMV, Maryland, pretty much. Even though I've lived pretty much everywhere in Maryland and DC, but I'm a diehard Wizards fan, man. I go down with the ship. And on the other hand, I guess I don't. This isn't really a journalism seat. I mean, this is a podcast seat, so I don't really know if this is considered real journalism or not. But I'm here. Okay. There's a reason ineptitude lasts as long as it does. Sometimes it's because you don't know you don't know how to get out of the situation that you're in, which causes ineptitude. If the situation is poor, it causes ineptitude. There's also times when you're naive and you're just stubborn to change. I will say this. The only caveat to this is if Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook wants him to stay. But even that, I will say, does that really matter? In fact, I have the receipts. Remember when shouts out to Mike Sykes, works for USA Today Sports. Shouts out to him. He brought something to my attention, or brought something to the attention. When somebody had, hey, I think Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook wants him to stay. He was like, yeah, Steph Curry wanted Mark Jackson to stay too. That didn't work out. Now you see where Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors are. But Scott Brooks, first of all, what is my problem with Scott Brooks? My problem with Scott Brooks is his adjustments. He doesn't make a lot of adjustments. He does not really care about defense. And I feel he lost the locker room. And I feel like he's a middle. I don't even think I think he's a middle of the pack to below average coach. The only thing that he's riding on is he's been to the NBA as a player. He won a championship, but as like a role player. But he's coached Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Serge Ibaka. Now he's coached John Wall and Bradley Beal, and it's like I think you're riding off of that high, right? Okay. Since 2016, since that was the first year Scott Brooks was the coach, since then, this is his defensive rating and offensive rating. Defensive rating since 2016 up has been, he's ranked 20th, 15th, 27th, 29th, and 20th this year in defensive rating. Meaning that he has not been the highest he's ever ranked, the highest the Washington Wizards has ever ranked since Scott Brooks has been a coach is 15th. And that was back in 2017. So you're probably thinking to yourself, and I thought to myself too, well, okay, offensively he's not good, but defensively he's not good, but offensively he has to at least crack the top 10 multiple times, because your defense can't be that bad and your offense is offensively since 2016. He was ranked 8th. Since then, it was 8th, 15th, 15th, 16th, and 17th. So meaning you only cracked the top 10 in offensive rating once, and that was back in 2007 or 2016. Ever since then, you have not ranked over 15th in offensive rating, and you haven't ranked over 15th in defensive rating, and you've only ranked 15th once in defensive rating, and that was in 2017. Ineptitude is a problem, man. If you think, I don't understand. I understand this difference between a player's coach and like a stern coach, but I don't understand how you can look at what you saw since 2016 and think to yourself, he's a pretty good coach. And now, I knew it. I said it on social media. I said, yo, all this winning is going to trick the Wizards in thinking that Scott Brooks is a good coach. Not because, Russell Westbrook is a good player and Bradley Beal is a good player. Maybe the pieces are finally gelling. No, they're going to think that it's because it's a good coach. Well, last year, they were ranked, or this year, they were ranked 20th in defense and 17th in offense. Meaning their team was pretty evenly bad. Yet and still, Scott Brooks will be back next year. They make it tough, man. They make it. And the worst part about it is because I think the Washington has been, even though you had John Wall, Bradley Beal, Paul Pierce was there a couple years. Trevor Ariza was there a couple years. Because Washington has not been good in so long, every little inkling of success, even if it's small success, is huge to them. Yes, making the playoffs is cool, or making the play-in and winning one game in the play-in when you had two is cool. But does it, look at everything that you saw in the regular season. How many times Bradley Beal was upset. How many times Russell Westbrook took a dumbass shot in the late game or had a stupid turnover late game. Or how many times we had perfect timeout situations and the timeout wasn't called. Or how many times that you saw Scott Brooks just looking dumbfounded or look like a deer in headlights on camera on the sideline when the team's getting blown out by. I went to a playoff game where they got blown out by 30 points, bro. I don't know how you see that and think to yourself, you know what? That is our coach. Bruh. One time since Scott Brooks has been here, we have been ranked higher than 10th in offensive rating. And this is with John Wall and Bradley Beal and Trevor Ariza and Paul George and Paul Pierce. And Ish Smith, and all he do is offense. Yet and still, since he's been here, the defense has been nowhere. We had 20th, 15th, 27th, 29th, and 20th. And that gives you a freaking resume to stay? I'm getting hot. It's tough, man. It's tough. Let me move forward. I'm going to. Shouts out to Oklahoma Sooners softball for winning their 5th college softball World Series, beating Florida State. Congratulations to you young ladies. Oklahoma is pretty much a powerhouse down there as far as softball. And shouts out to you guys. Definitely well deserved. Shouts out to James Madison. Shouts out to all the people in the World Series or March Madness bracket in softball. Guys were incredible. But yeah, shouts out to Oklahoma for winning their 5th college softball World Series. Shouts out. And there you have it. That has been today's episode of Unpopular Podcast. I'm sorry. It's hard watching a team that has the talent that they, or the lack of talent that they have. And even with the lack of talent that they have, you haven't even been able to capitalize on that. Don't think because Bradley Beal is so good, that's because of Scott Brooks. Don't think because Russell Westbrook is a triple-double dude, it's because of Scott Brooks. That's probably in spite of Scott Brooks. Bruh. That has been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to wherever you're listening. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. If you want an Unpopular Podcast hoodie, shirt, if you want any type of merch, link in the description below. Any shirt we got, we did multiple colors. Go get you one. Scott Brooks though, bruh. All right. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And until next time, much love.